while on hiatus between jobs. I was staying in Jersey, in Little Ferry. Uh, I had a consignment to help a friend that had real estate prep a house for sale and have a broom swept and ready for the sale. So, and my working there on 9/11, I got up that morning. I went to the house. I backed my truck up into the driveway. I went into the house, evaluated the material I would need, and went off to the plumbing store in my truck. And I'm an adverse, at the time I was an admirer of Howard Stern and his radio show. So I was listening to his broadcast, and he mentioned we just got word that the Trade Center was hit. Now, on his show, you don't know whether to take it with validity or it was a joke, but you heard this big bang. And I'm listening to the show continue, and he says, "Oh my God, another plane is approaching." At that point, I'm up on the Jersey Promenade looking over New York City, and I watched the second plane smack into the building. And it was a horrible sight to see. And all the smoke and the debris and the flames. You were seeing people jumping out of the buildings and total chaos. And I'm going, oh my God, what the hell is going on? And then I thought, my family. So the house where I was working was locked. I jumped back into my Bronco after seeing the second plane hit the Trade Center. And I got the radio on, listening to and thinking at the same time, how am I going to get back to New York? So I'm driving up Route 3, and at that point, I'm still with the radio station, and he's saying all the bridges and tunnels are closed. And I'm going, so how am I going to get in here? And at that point, I pulled over to listen to the radio and look at the Trade Center burn and watched them fall from Route 3 by Giant Stadium as a clear shot of the Trade Center, and watched them both crumble. Now I'm frantic, and I don't know what to do. So I said, take a minute and think. So at that point, I turned around the vehicle. I went up. I went back on 3. Went up to 17, swung back around, and headed back through the streets. And I'm thinking, I got to get to Brooklyn, and I can't go through Manhattan. So I took the streets, which was 1 and 9, and that takes you into Bayonne. Bayonne got me up to the bridge. I know the traffic pattern to get up to the bridge. And I begged the people there, because my license was still New York and it still had the New York address. And I told them I've got to get home to see if my family's okay. They were reluctant at first, but I pleaded with the officer, and the officer in charge says, let him through. And I says, I don't want it for nothing. I hand him the money. He said, forget about the money. Get home. And I got home. I got over the Verrazano Bridge, and I'm looking at the smoke bellowing over the New York skyline into Brooklyn. And at that point, I'm trying frantically to call people. Now, I have T-Mobile. Their antenna's on top of the Empire State Building. But guess where everybody else has their antenna? On top of the towers. Nobody had a phone. AT&T was shut down. You couldn't make a phone call if you wanted to. Their central hub was crushed in downtown Manhattan. So I managed to take the streets to go back to Brooklyn. Went along the Bell Parkway, got into Seagate, found the ex-wife was okay, my son was okay, my brother-in-law was okay, my business agent was okay. And I'm looking at confetti flying in the air in my old neighborhood. And my old neighborhood is called the White Sands. It's part of Bensonhurst, but it's a little community that's between Bensonhurst, the Bell Parkway, and Coney Island. That's where I was raised. Seagate, where my son resides with his mother, is at the end of Coney Island, the most western tip of Coney Island. But after checking with them and then going back into my neighborhood and seeing this confetti, it was little fragments of paper that some was Chinese, some was like Russian, some was money. And it was astonishing seeing it's like the ash from a volcano. And it was just like tinkling down and like, you're wondering, like, this is in Manhattan. And it traveled all the way to here, my neighborhood, which is actually Bay 53rd Street in Brooklyn. And I realized at that point, talking with my friends, there was nothing I can do. But I felt there was something I can do. So at that point, I said farewell to everybody. I wished everybody well. And I pursued my way back to get to Jersey, get back to Little Ferry. I didn't go back to finishing that house. I went home because by the time I got back, it was dark already. And I went to sleep with a phone call from my friend telling me he heard that if you're a union worker, they're taking people down at the Trade Center. And I went, okay, now thank you. And I watched the media, and they said if you're a tradesman, you need to get to the Javits Center. And we're looking for volunteers. At that point, I got dressed. I put on my work boots, put on my car dungarees, my work vest, a pair of gloves, a bandana, and my hard hat. And at that point, I proceeded to leave the house. And they were given directions on the radio that you can gain access with your ID and your union card. And that's how I got access into the Lincoln Tunnel, by showing, and they did not charge me the fee to get through the tunnel. I drove through the tunnel, I got to the other side, and to get from the Lincoln Tunnel to 34th Street, it's really not hard, but remember, the city is closed. You can't get in, you can't get out. The only way I got in is because I had ID. Otherwise, nobody was permitted. And I was watching, I finally got the car parked in a spot where I felt that I hope it's okay having my truck here. It was on 35th Street and 12th Avenue, across the street from the Javits Center. I found a place to park. I got out of the truck, And I looked at a sea. When I got to the corner, there was a sea of people, as far as you can see for as long as you can see. And as you looked uptown, you seen the Trade Center still smoldering. It's the next day. So I proceeded to go from there to the line waiting to get into registering at the Javits Center. And you seen the Salvation Army people there trying to bring comfort with food and beverages and trying to keep people calm and in prayer. But there was nothing but people from my industry there. A wall, a sea of people, as far as you can see all the way down to the west side. And I'm talking 12th Avenue. That's a nice wide berth on both sides of the street. Who's got barricades, who's got police guns and riot gear, and who's got the military with fully armed. And I'm talking having M16 rifles and high-tech gear and guard dogs, the whole bit. It was locked down New York City. So I stood online and I waited to get into the Javits Center to enroll. Stood on that line for about, I got into the city, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got up to the door, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. And I heard a soldier telling another soldier that was escorting me in, "That's it, we're not taking any more." And I felt like heartbroken. And I went, "Me? You don't want to accept me?" He says, "No, you can come, but no more after that," he tells him. So the soldier goes back to his post, and now telling people they're not taking anybody. So they took me, and I stood online waiting until I got to the lady, and she took my information for my union card, and she handed me a little strip of paper, a registration paper. When they were giving out the registration forms, this was the receipt that they handed me. Now, on the back of it, I've got written the address of the location. In other words, they were taking people. So I got through filling out the application form, and I said, "What do I do next?" And they says, "Well, go outside until they call your number or see if they could use you." Okay. And now I go outside and I'm sitting alongside the south part of 34th Street between West Side Highway and 12th Avenue, but more close to 12th Avenue. And it's a sea of people. You got a line of police in the middle of the street. You have, I call it scrambled egg hat, which to me is highfalutin police officers with the scrambled eggs, meaning they're high commission officers, patrolling the streets to keep it clear so vehicles can go up and down it. So I'm communicating with the industry. I'm part of the industry. The people there, you had plumbers, you had electricians, you had laborers, there's 5 different types of laborers in New York City. Every one of them was there. There was welders and iron workers and everybody, painters. If you had a union card and you were in construction, you were allowed to go there. Well, these people already went through that line I went through, and I don't even know what number I am, but when they said it was a cutoff point and I wanted to be in the last one, I thought it was a blessing. So we sat there for the better part of the day, and we would, to me, it's like jabberwalking. We talked amongst each other about reacquaintance with people that we worked with, what we thought the situation was, how we're going to be handling it. Was it an act of terror? Was it an act of war? Who should be held responsible? You know, the regular barroom BS that you would have in a bar, we were having there without the beer. But you did manage, if you got tired and hungry, you were able to be fed and you drank because Salvation Army was right there on the corner giving comfort. It's getting late in the day. I hear, does anybody have a truck? I hear. Now, alongside that southern side of West 35th Street is the old train yard. It's part of the train yard on 34th Street. And it's got a trestle. It had, I don't know if it still does now, but at that time it had still part of the train trestles that they used to bring the freight cars around for the meat industry when they used to bring in the livestock. It was part of the train system. It's also 34th Street, which is Penn Station. In the hours to come, I hear faintly, but I still hear it. Does anybody have a pickup? No, I don't have a pickup. I have a Bronco. Bronco's not a pickup. It might look like a pickup, but I got a hard cap on it. And I didn't think I was going to get a shot to answer that call. So I'm still BSing. Now an officer comes up and says, listen, guys, we've gotten all the volunteers we could use today. You guys can head home. There's no need for you to be here. And I went, really? I went through all of this to be told to go home? I don't think so. Most of the guys departed. But to me, you're not wasting my time. I feel I came here for a purpose. God knows it was for a purpose. So I stayed. And we started BS. And then the sea of people, now we're thinning down. Then I hear again, anybody have a pickup? And I'm still thinking, somebody's going to jump on that faster than a free lottery ticket. So I ignored it. And then we're still chatting away, me and other colleagues. And who's heading home, who's tired, who's going to come back tomorrow. Then I heard, this was about 6 o'clock. Does anybody have a pickup? I went, I don't have a pickup. I yelled, I don't have a pickup. I have a Bronco. Well, go get it. I need your help. Me? You're the guy that has the Bronco? Yep. The girl, her name was Lisa. Funny to have that name, but that's what I married. Her name was Lisa. And if to know the area, it's right across the street from the side entrance to the Javits Center. And it's a opening to a parking lot, which was a staging area where your admittance gate was. But it was all cordoned off with barricades, police barricades. And I had to see a cop still there. So I yelled out to they yelled out, you know, I told them I had a Bronco, and they said, okay. And the girl, Lisa, says to me, you need to go to Subways on 6th Avenue and 14th Street. I went, okay, I could do that, but you got to use your truck. I went, okay. So I said, thank you. And I left with excitement that, yes, I didn't come here for nothing. I'm able to help. Even if it's just to do this, I'm doing my part. But then I thought, I got to go get my truck. I'm not going to have a place to park my truck. But that's the price you pay for being helpful. So I got my truck. Do you know what it's like to travel from 35th Street and 12th Avenue to go, I'd say it's not even 15 blocks, to go and retrieve 5 bags of sandwiches? You did not need a pickup truck. You didn't even need a Bronco. You could have had a Volkswagen and still had room for 5 people. Well, needless to say, it took me 4 hours to travel from 34th Street and 12th Avenue to 6th Avenue and 14th Street. 4 hours of stop, go, go, stop, go. I could have left the car where it was, walked there, and I could have gotten it quicker. But the truck is what they said to do it in, and I did it. Because I knew what I was going to go and get. All right, so they handed me the bags, and I said, thank you very much. And I go and get them. Now it takes me almost 2.5 hours to get back. But I'm still determined to get there. Because you got to remember, you still got to follow the traffic pattern. You can't make up your own rules. You got to follow the rules of the road. And nobody can move out of New York. So people are just driving around aimlessly in a traffic gridlock that was completely engulfed in New York. It was crazy. It was mayhem. But you sense the sense of unity of everybody dealing with it. So now I got the packages. I come back up. I got a police barricade telling me I can't go any further. I says, I have provisions that I was asked to bring in. Oh, you got supplies. Go ahead. So now I'm able to drive my truck down 34th Street on between 12th and West Street. So I pull over to the side. Now the crowd of people, the sea of people, have gone down to about 3 dozen people, if that many are still lingering, waiting for their chance to help. So I get out of my truck, I grab the 5 bags, and I go up to the gate and I says, Lisa, I got your bags. She says, put them back in your truck and drive your truck in. You serious? Put them back in your truck and drive your truck in. You don't have to tell me more than twice. So I got my packages. I put them back in the truck. But I went, I got them right here. But I didn't want to question it no more. So I did what she said. I put them back in my truck, and I'm driving the truck in. They let my truck in. She says, thank you for taking the packages. Put your car in the back. I went, okay. So I found myself a nice spot to park my truck in the back. And I left my keys in it. Because I says, if somebody's got to move it, I don't want them to break my truck. Let me leave the keys in it. Makes sense. So now I go back to this girl, Lisa. She's got this young man running around with her named Chris. And she says, how would you like to be part of my elite team? I went, You mean to go and fetch things? She says, yep. Be part of my elite force. You look like a good candidate. I went, thank you for the opportunity. I hope I make you proud. What do you want me to do? Help load that vehicle, which was a white SUV, like an Explorer. It was like a brand new truck. Help load that vehicle. It's got to be sent down to the trade center. Okay. So we're packing the boxes, the sandwiches that I brought. They went into the truck. Everything's going accordingly. And I says, is there anything else? Well, we're waiting for the driver for this truck to get an escort. Meanwhile, you can help unload the tractor trailer at the end of the block. Now, this was down by West Street. They had a tractor trailer pulling out provisions. So I went over there and helped with one box. I carried the box back. I put it into the truck. And they says, okay, we got the driver. Get into the truck. I went, okay. I says, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you. He says, you made me proud already. You got me the sandwiches. I went, thank you. And I left. Now, imagine this. The whole vehicle is engulfed in totally packed with supplies. And now you're going to stick about 5 people in it. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 people in it, including me. I mean, 9. It was like one of those type of phone booth operations where you try to stick as many people in a sardine can as you can. They did. We got everybody in it. My idea was to lay the girls on top of the guys, lay them out straight, opposite each other so nobody can get into trouble. And somebody drives. Chris drove. So we pull out of the parking lot and we're going down West Street. Somewhere between 14th Street and 23rd Street, we lost our escort. And we managed to wangle our way past 14th Street, but now we got to come up to Canal. Canal, they weren't letting nobody. They don't care who you were. If you didn't have your escort, you weren't going. You had the military, you had the state troopers, you had NYPD, you had FEMA. Every one of them people were at a man post with guns drawn on you, telling you you ain't going that way. Okay? We have to go to Varick. So we drive up to Varick, which is really 7th Avenue and Canal, to try and gain access. And they weren't going to let us gain access. And they says, the only way you're going to get that stuff in there is if you carry it. Okay? So I picked the biggest box. Because of the amount of people, I felt if I carried the bigger box, I'm a bigger guy, I should be able to handle it. So from that point on, I trudged with this big pamper-sized box full of provisions, including my sandwiches were in the box, from Varick and Canal all the way down to Stuyvesant High School on my shoulder.
How many, for somebody that doesn't have any...
Perception of the distance?
Yes, sir.
Mile and a half. It's about a mile and a half. And I dragged this box on my shoulder. So did everybody else. But as you were walking into the site, you were walking into the beginning of dusk, like Chamber Street. No, not Chamber. Worth. Around Worth Street. You started stepping into dust. And as you got closer to Stuyvesant High School, because we had to walk up Varick and then cross over by the the college there, and then cross up to the West Side Highway to get up to Stuyvesant High School. As you were walking, it was like being in a light snowdrift into walking into a full-fledged snowstorm in debris. It was, now you're no longer walking, you're trudging. And I had to stop about 3 or 4 times because that box was heavy. And I'm only human. But I got it. I got it to go there. And then when we got to Stuyvesant High School, they says, this ain't the place this stuff is supposed to go. And I'm exhausted. I am exhausted. I says, I got to carry this further? And they went, yep. You got to go over to World Financial 3. I went, really? So with that, I picked up the box again, and now I start walking from Stuyvesant High School. And there's streets in between there in the back. I don't know, North River Road, I think they call it now. But it's not on West Street. But as you're walking, it's no longer, you're walking like you're going through a snowstorm. Drifts of debris. And you were starting to see wreckage that was pulled out of the site of fire trucks mangled, police cars flattened. It was like I was walking into a war zone. And then I came upon the Trade Center for the very first time. And my mouth opened, my heart broke, and my first words were, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they've done. And I pursued my rest of the way into the site, seeing nothing but destruction. It was a sight I wish on no man, but it was horrific. So I finally got the box of provisions, including my sandwiches, into World Financial Building. The windows were all blown out. People were scrambling all over the place. And my box of provisions disappeared as fast as I put it down. Gloves going this way, food going that way. You're seeing people trying to give comfort. You're seeing people exhausted. You're seeing people, you got to remember, it's now a whole day gone. It's the next day. I finally got there. It was nightfall. But the carnage that I was looking upon was total destruction. You've seen cars that were on fire, buildings with gouges in them, with steel girders sticking in them, steel structures sticking right back up on out of the ground. And then you started to see the bodies being collected. And there was no refrigerator truck yet. All it was tow tags with people, if you want to call them people, lined up alongside the outside of the building with covers over. So I said to Chris, let's get back. We got to go get more supplies. He says, get back where? He says, I said, she said she wanted us to come back. He says, why did you come here? To help and volunteer. Well, there's a lot of work out there for you. You mean we don't have to go back? No. Is this what she meant by her elite force? She says, yeah. You wanted to get down here. You answered her call. She took you down. She let you go in. Thanks. I'll be talking to you. So with that in mind, I grabbed a hold of a bottle of water. Grabbed a hold of a bottle of water, and a flashlight. I had my working gloves, I had my hard hat, I had my vest. And I seen a group of firemen going into Building 6. And I yelled across before they were heading to cross the street. Well, you want to call it a street, the debris, to go into the building. I says, you guys could use a hand. We could use all the help we can get. I went, okay. So I can come? Yeah, come on. So I grabbed myself my flashlight and my bottle of water. And as I'm running to them, I'm saturating my bottle of water, my bandana with the bottle of water. I collapsed the bottle, stick it in my back pocket, and I'm looking like an outlaw. I wrapped the bandana around my face and went in because I knew that walking into that smoke was not going to be healthy. And I had nothing else. I used my ingenuity with the water and the bandana to help me. Didn't last long, but it did help because the soot just clogged my bandana, and I was having difficulties breathing. But myself and the fire division that went in to 6 searched that whole building. One of my ideas was when I was going into the cars to seek if anybody was, huddled in a corner in the car, that they had lights, because remember, the trade center had no power. So I started turning on the headlights, and I said to the chief, why don't we turn the headlights on, they'll save our batteries. He said, good idea. So everybody yelled at, his whole command, to start turning on lights. Now it's a garage area where we're at. We're in the first level going down into the building 6. And we searched everything. Now I'm in customs building. I'm seeing all kinds of vehicles and all kinds of armaments, weapons. It's not my business. And I'm not there to find out about that type of stuff. But the equipment that was there, I guess, was highly confidential and not meant to be talked about, whether it be me or anybody else. So I take it to my grave. I protect my country. So I can't talk about what I've seen or what kind of weaponry I've seen and high-tech devices. But I think I seen what man wasn't supposed, the common layman wasn't supposed to see. And there's some situations there that I can't talk about because too many brave men died. And I don't want to make them suffer for the stupidity of others. But I can tell you firsthand, not everybody was honest there, but I was. And I searched and I searched looking for just one person alive. None. But in the midst of our search, the fire department crew that I was with had recovered 3 bodies. It was amongst the debris of the demolition that had happened to the building. So, in recovering the bodies and putting them in the stokes, we were going to make up a pulley harness to hoist up the bodies because the stairwells weren't big enough to carry the stokes up out of. We were going to do a conveyor pulley to pull up the bodies. So I used my size, because I'm a big guy. I used my size to convince the chief that I can go up on top and help them hoist up the bodies. He agreed. So I followed the other firefighter. We threw a line down. We taut the line. We tied it off to one of the columns that was sturdy. They tied it off to a column that was sturdy down there. And then we started to hoist up the stokes. At the end of the 3, twilight had illuminated the center of the building. And in the midst of the twilight of the morning and illumination of the atrium that was now created in Building 6, stood the structure of a cross. And it was so beholding to me, so spiritually uplifting, that it brought me to my knees in tears. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm dealing with dead people. I felt comforted by looking upon the cross and revitalized. And I pointed it out to my colleague, which was another firefighter, that the cross was present. And he started to cry. And you could see his fatigue. And we were tired. We had lifted up 3 bodies from the bottom of this thing and been all night searching for them. And I went, there's no words to describe this. I can't believe I'm looking at this. And he goes, you discovered something really beautiful. And I went, I don't think it's so beautiful, it is spiritual. And my journey with the cross had begun. We recovered the 3 bodies. We took them into the morgue area. Now they started getting refrigerator trucks in. They were able to try and bring identity to the bodies and then process them to put them into deep freeze so that they can be post-mortem processed. And it was total carnage to see the bodies in the shapes they were, and the recovery of the 3 that we just did. And I have 47 of them in recovery. So I'm exhausted, but yet I'm going to still persevere. So I go along with what they started with was the bucket brigades. And I was on the bucket brigade for 1 day. Then another day, I wandered around trying to be hopeful to find or listen, to hear somebody alive, to try and rescue them. It didn't work. I had blisters on the bottom of my feet, the size of a softball, because I had already gone at that point through 2 pairs of boots. My boots were gone in the first 8 hours of work. The steel was so hot, it melted my leather on my shoes, walking around on it. So I managed to find another pair of boots. And that's what the civilian population of America was doing. They were sending us everything. They sent, I can't believe what our country had, how it pulled together to come to our aid and bring for us. And I am so proud of my country for that. And I proceeded to try and get some medical aid for my foot. And now this is like the third day. The 3rd day. I wound up wandering over to Liberty and West. They had a triage center there. And I felt kind of stupid going to ask for people to help me with my feet. There were only blisters. I could deal with it, but it was painful. And I wanted to continue my journey of looking and helping people. I was tired. I needed to walk away from it. I've done bucket brigade for 2 days. I worked with the fire department and found the cross. And everybody I seen, I kept bringing to the cross, not knowing what to call it, not knowing what to label it, but knowing I found something that had some great spiritual values. And everybody I brought to it found it. I don't care what denomination you were, because I brought people like Benjamin Netanyahu there, Jeb Bush there. I brought Barbara Walters to it. She's got a bad memory, but
This is while it's still in the building.
it's still in the building. But until I met these three girls that I seek to help me with my feet in the condition they were, they had broken the blisters that were on my foots, and relieved the pressure and put tape and Band-Aids, and they gave me a new pair of boots. They were rubber boots, but they were still boots, and told me, stay off the steel for a bit. And I seen all three of the girls were in despair. They could not stop crying, couldn't get a jiggle out of them if I tried. You know, a slight smile, anything. One girl was grieving because her ex-boyfriend was a firefighter that went into the building and never came out. And she was grieving. And the other girl was grieving because it was her girlfriend, and she was grieving, so she had to grieve. And the other girl was just crying because everybody else was crying. So I says, listen, I don't know if this is going to work, but can you guys get away for a few minutes? I don't know. I says, come on, I'm going to show you something. So I said to the medical surgeon in charge, I says, I don't see you guys busy. Can I borrow these three girls for a few minutes? I promise you they'll be right back. Only for a few minutes? Yeah. Okay. So I took the girls, and we went around the back end of the World Financial Center, because you couldn't go up West Street. It was shot. So I had to go up and around. And I brought them into Building 6. And I says, can that help you? And they all looked at it. And they all cried on each other. And then got up and said, you are so blessed. Thank you. And I went, I'm not the one that's blessed. That's the cross. No, you brought us to that cross. I went, I seen something that might be able to help you. Well, you got to do something to let people know this is here. It's not good that you got to go around chasing everybody to come into this place. I said, you know what? That's a good idea. So the fire department was using marking paint to label the buildings or the areas they were working in, right? Hot, checked, okay, or a 0 with a line through it, meaning it's been done, or not checked. And as we were leaving the building, I says, I don't really know what to call this other than God's house. Well, that's the name. With that, I started writing on the pillars, God's house. And then on the other pillow, coming closer to the door, God's house with an arrow facing up. Then I got outside, and it's a rolled down gate. Both sides are ripped down, but the center gate is still there. And I wrote on it, God's house, in big yellow paint, marking paint. And then people started to flock. People were curious to know what was God's house. And then I had a minister from the FBI, chaplain, come up and look upon the cross and say to me, I might be able to help you save that cross. I says, listen, I've had everybody here. Jesse Jackson, Mahalia Jackson, Benjamin, everybody's telling me to pray. Well, I'll tell you what. My nephew Rob is a reporter for the Post, and I think your story is worth being told. Give me your phone number and I'll have him contact you. He did. And he did. And we did. And we had a nice little heart-to-heart story about the wonders of the cross and how it helped people. And it got through on the paper where people started reading the Sunday paper because you got to remember, in the first 4.5 days, it was nonstop. I was a volunteer. And then they told us volunteership would be over if we couldn't hook up with a company to work for. Now, I knew some of the people that were working there because I had worked formerly for Mizaki that summer. And Breeze Demolition, which is where I started with, I know him from childhood. He knew my father even better. My father was a very well-revered man upon this man's eyes. So he says, yeah, I'm going to hire you, but I ain't going to give you your union scale. I went, what do you mean? He says, you're getting 79 and liking it. I'm not signing a contract with 731, because that's the local I was with. I went, okay, whatever it takes to stay here, I'll do it. He went, all right. Needless to say, he didn't sign a contract, but he paid me the wages at 731 paid. He was a really good Joe. Romano, what's his name? Toby Romano, the owner of Breeze. He did good by me. And I worked with him with a lot of operations where I found like 6 of the bodies in just projects that we worked together with. He had me clean out the atrium. There I had 6 bodies I had recovered from inside the atrium. And that was nothing but a glass shell, so these people were razor blade. They had to come down from the building, get shredded through the glass, and then be piled on top of with all kinds of debris. But I am responsible for 2 of the largest finds in veins of people in staircases by just watching the grappler grab a bunker clip, which is part of their outfit, and not destroying and desecrating their bodies, but being able to bring them out with dignity and wholeness instead of tearing their bodies apart. I've had an incident where there was 2 women and a man. I seen the strap and I grabbed the strap and up came the upper torso of a black lady with the strap. Her whole face was shredded, half a torso, and behind her was another lady. She also was like compressed, massive compressedness. She was holding the hand of a man that was twisted inside a steel beam. That I had to put my arm behind the beam and push his body out. These are some of the gruesome stories that I live with every day. And some of the memories that just don't go away. But after doing the story, I had a Sunday where Father Jordan, a Franciscan priest, was handing out communion. Now I'm saved. But I'm feeling, what would it hurt to take a communion? It's still a symbolic faith. It's still worshiping God. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's make a deal, Father Jordan. What's that, Frank? I says, you do something good with me with this here, giving me the host and communion, and I'm going to show you something that might make your day. He went, okay, it's a deal. So I knelt before him. He handed me the host. I said, thank you for your blessing. You're a Catholic. I'm a Christian. You had your shot. And I walked him into Building 6. And he says, God's house? What do you mean by God's house? And I went, all you need to do is look, Father. And he looked and he went, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I went, well, Frank, you're a blessing from God. I says, could you help me save it? And Father Jordan, love him to death, but he likes to use the profanity. Father Jordan says, I'll take care of them effing politicians. I'll damn them all with hell if they don't get me what I want. And I went, well, I've had better than you. Try and do it. And all everybody kept telling me to do is pray. He says, I'm a Franciscan priest. I get what I want. I went, okay. So he takes off, and I've got to go to a friend of mine's wedding in the Bahamas, September. And as I'm getting onto the plane, I get a phone call from Father Jordan saying, Frankie, the cross was saved. I went, Father Jordan, bless you. Thank you so very much. I says, but right now I'm stepping onto a plane and I'll call you when I get back. He says, okay. So I got back from the wedding. It was a weekend. I left on Friday. I was back by Monday morning. I left on Friday afternoon. We went to the Bahamas. I spent the day in the Bahamas. Took a beautiful picture of a beach scene. And then the next night I got drunk. I don't remember much after that. And then the next day I was on my way home. But all in all, oh yeah, they did record it. And everybody was revering me because of me finding the cross at the wedding. And I was drunk, but my speech was patriotic. I don't remember any of it, but they had it on the tape. And I got everybody going, God bless America. And then passed out. I was drinking Johnny Walker, not Johnny Walker Black, what was the name of it? Number 7, Tennessee.
Daniels.
Thank you. That's why I can never forget the booze. I'm having Jack Daniels. I'm having it by the drinking glass full. And I'm downing them. And I got to about 4 until I realized I shouldn't have done that. But it was too late. And I know I got up that morning. I had a camera in my hand. I was drunk out of my face, and I'm waking up looking at the sunrise up on the beach. And what a beautiful sunrise. And I says, I wish I could take a picture of that. I can. Click. And I forgot about it. All right, so I come home. I'm developing the film. The first picture on the thing looks like a postcard. You know, when they give you your photos. The first photo, I went, this ain't my picture. This is one of your postcards. You mixed in my, that's your picture. And I went, wow. It was that good. The sun was rising. The whole ambiance of the picture was like the Lord talking to me through that and capturing that moment to burn that into my mind that I am still with you, son. And I'll show you the beauty that I have to offer you. With that, I come home. I'm rejubilant. And I was told by Father Jordan to get a hold of Ken Holden, which is the DDC commissioner. And here's his number, and get in touch with his office. He'll give you everything you need to save the cross. Pretty good. So here's me, Mr. Nobody, trying to hunt down Mr. Ken Holden. Nice guy. Somebody that didn't believe, but realized how to believe. He's a Jewish boy. His words to me is, frankly, I don't care. This has got nothing to do with my religion. He says, I was ordered by the office of the mayor's office to help you, OEM Richie's, to help you. I'm here to help you. How can we do this, and what can we do for you? Well, there came a time where I had to speak at the inauguration. He helped. He got a hold of a company. Breeze took on the job free of charge, pro bono. Anything and everything that was done for that cross is pro bono. There is no charge. Nobody charged them. The industry did not charge them. And it was saved that way. It was cut out of the building, the crane operation to move it up and out of there, the cutting of the shroud to take it off, all was pro bono. Nobody charged anything to anybody. It was a common effort for a common cause. So Ken Holden, not believing, quite didn't understand how to approach me. But on the day of the inauguration of the cross, I gave a speech, and I says, this is not a cross of religion, but this is a cross of faith. This is a cross that was given to us at this site to be humble to our faith and to look upon our faith to find comfort through these trying times. I had such an applause and an acknowledgement. It to this day, it still takes me. And I felt good because I felt I represented God in his fullest form, not as an individual, but as a whole. Not to one source of faith, but to all faiths. Whether you be an Oriental, whether you be a Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, an atheist, I didn't really care. It was that it was being saved and it had healing qualities to who looked upon it for it. In other words, if you're a Hindu and you looked at this cross, when I had Benjamin Netanyahu say to me, Frank, this is very significant to peace. I said, thank you. Could you help me save it? Sorry, I can't help you. This is diplomatic. I can't get involved. Oy. What could I tell you? But Ken Holden, after I made my speech, and I just seen him at the thank you ceremony, to this day, he still acknowledges me as a righteous man for what I brought to him, to allow him. His kids cried. And he couldn't understand why they were crying until he says, Dad, it's not about his religion, it's about ours. And it's really not about just yours, it's about everybody's. And he realized that, and he went, now I understand what you meant. And to this day, Ken Holden still remains my dear friend. He's no longer a commissioner, but he moved on to better things. But the man still to this day reveres me for my dedication and cause of the cross. But the commission just don't see it that way. So I can't fight bureaucracy. It took a special operation to put it where it went. What am I going to do, fight City Hall? I can't even ask to make a duplicate, though they've put similarities of the cross in different locations around the country. There's one in Shanksville. There's one in Rockaway, Point Pleasant. There's another one out by where the plane, I think, crashed.
That's Shanksville.
No, there was Flight 800 in Long Island. They thought a rocket took it out.
After the World Trade Center, about 2 weeks after the World Trade Center.
No. This.
Yeah, it crashed in
Hey,
Brooklyn.
no, not that one. There was one that was out in Long Island. It landed in the ocean. They thought a rocket knocked it out. It was during 9/11 also.
I remember that, yeah.
That's where another cross went. Because there was more than one cross. You got to understand, the structure of the Trade Center
Right.
is in cross forms.
Right.
But the symbolic venue that cross fell to, I've shown you in pictures.
Right.
It's not something I've duplicated. It's just an image that I copied. And those are my pictures. Those are my negatives. Nobody, I did. Those are my negatives. I might have lost them, but I know I made them. And those are true artifacts to show, like I showed in the poster. It's me holding the cross in front of the cross and show you where the cross was found. So people would understand that people were saying it was being made because of a Fox photo of it being erected the night before and being constructed with a base. But that's the only construction that was done. It didn't have a shroud, but then there was a shroud put back on it because the shroud had to be taken off for safety reasons. They didn't want nobody getting hurt with falling debris from the cross.
But the shroud was on.
But it was still stuck around it.
Found it.
Huh? It was the way it shows in the picture.
Right.
I don't have to say a word. The picture says the whole story. It shows in my picture of the cross. The cross was found in its exact form, shape, and location that I say it was. And it wasn't just that it's me, politicians, dignitaries, celebrities, people of multiple faiths have looked upon and revered and acknowledged. So to this day, Barbara Walters, it's one of her highlights of 9/11. She thinks an ironworker, and forgetting it was a laborer that walked her into the building. For her words were to me, and I'll never forget them. How dare I call this place God's house? And I said, Barbara, look around you. Doesn't this place look like hell? And then looked upon the cross and fled, asking me, and gave me a little card that said, please contact my office when you get pictures of it. I'd love to have a copy. They gave her the wrong picture. She, to this day, shows the wrong picture. When we went to Wohops, I think it is the name of the restaurant. We sat there, we had a nice meal. I wanted to pay the bill. The guys were yelling at me, no, you can't do that, it's not right. I didn't find out it was another patron that did it. I was the one that got up, went over to the gentleman, shook his hand and thanked him. And some of the guys that I was with actually cried and thanked them too, because they didn't know what to do about a stranger buying their meal. These are proud people. There was Sal, Joey, and Frank, and myself. We went into Wohops. I might be saying the name wrong. But it was in Chinatown. And it showed the American people pulling together and trying to show a decent human kindness during a tragic time. And it was so spiritually uplifting. It was ridiculous. And it's one of the major things that are burnt in my head that won't never come out. It's who I am. Like I told you, to me, this is to benefit children. Children need to learn from this experience that faith has a way of approaching the most weirdest person in the world and grace him with the beauty of God.